Hello Tech Pros, episode 261.
Keep experimenting, right? Fully knowing that 9 times out of 10 you're going to fail, but that one success is going to be so exciting.
Welcome to the podcast where we explore the opportunities, challenges, and anxieties that technical professionals and techpreneurs face when building their career, building their products, and building their business. This show is about the people behind technology and the mindsets and skill sets they developed that led to their success. You can learn more about this podcast and our guests at hellotechpros.com and about overcoming social anxiety at anxietynerd.com. All right, let's get started. Hello Tech Pros, this is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Amar Vyas. Hey Amar, how's it going?
It's going well, Chad. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Here in, at the time that we are recording this, who knows when the audience is actually listening to this, but when Amar and I are on this recording today, we're getting ready for the holiday seasons. I'm kind of winding down my podcast recordings, and so Amar, this is like, I've got yours and maybe 2 others, and then that's it for 2016. I will not be recording more episodes. So I don't know about you, brother, but this year has been super fast, but also very, very intense and a lot of work. So I'm just exhausted and I'm ready to take a little bit of a break. How about you?
Yeah, I echo your words completely. And except that, so here in India, we had our big festival of Diwali in the first week of November. So I was glad to have that break and then, give the end of the year really that big hard push it needs. To, on 1st of January, there should be a smile on my face. And that's what I'm going with right now.
Fantastic. I love it. Well, let me introduce you to the audience. So Amar Vyas is a husband, co-founder of Kamakshi Media, and sometimes a writer, a self-described nomad. Amar has lived in 15 cities over the past 20 years, including 2 years spent at the University of Illinois in Urbana Champaign and the Indian Institute of Management A for his MBA. In his spare time, Amar likes exploring offbeat places, learning Gujarati. Is that right? Gujarati?
Close enough. We'll give you grace marks on that.
Okay. From his wife and spending time with his dog, Buddy. Amar and his family live in Bangalore, India. And Amar, very, very privileged and honored to have you on the show today. This is going to be a great discussion. We were chatting off the air, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I gotta hit record, and we got to get into this because this is such good stuff." So you are a podcaster, right?
Yes, I am. And
cool. So tell us a little bit.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
So Kamakshi Media is the startup that my wife and I co-founded last December. So in fact, a week from now, we would be celebrating our first anniversary as in this business.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And the idea was, Chad, that both I've been listening to podcasts since probably 12 years. And Mrunal, my wife, once we got married, she got introduced to podcasts and, she fell in love with the idea. What we noticed was that there was like a lack of quality on-demand content in India, particularly in Indian languages, right? So you had a lot of Bollywood music, you had film music, gossip, sports, but nothing that would add value to your listening experience, so to speak. So, till last year, I was with Amazon. I was the program manager, used to build up all their fulfillment centers here in India. I used to head that side. And I kind of grew tired of, doing the same thing again and again. And I said, I need to do something different. And so, Mrunal and I actually took a week off and we thought really long and hard, what is it that we need to do out of life? And we said, hey, how about starting a podcasting business? And, lo and behold, 2 months later, that's what we actually ended up doing.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love that story. So, my story is very similar. Worked in software development, IT management for 20 plus years, and then just kind of felt like, man, I need something different. I need to get out of my comfort zone and try something different. Now, for my case, Amar, I'm still trying to get my wife on the air and maybe record something on the crafting side. She's a really talented paper crafter, or on the family side, talk about raising a child and do homeschool and all that kind of stuff. But I've yet to get her on the mic. But sounds like it's a wonderful thing. So the partnership that you and your wife have.
Yes, and she's right now still working full time. The reason is that the stage we are at right now, we've covered some great milestones, but it does not justify her giving it full time, and that's really takes a lot out of her, of course, the commute within Bangalore, fighting the traffic, a work day, coming back home. But I'm really glad not to just have a life partner, a spouse who actually believes in what we are doing, but also a business partner, who's probably giving probably more than what I am.
That's awesome. So you guys are podcasters. You're creating awesome content there for kind of the local folks there in India, trying to reach that local market and add value. So, as we talked about on the pre-show chat, the Hello Tech Pros audience are very technical people, right? There's probably folks that are listening to this that built some of the software that your Amazon fulfillment management stuff actually wrote some of that software. Who knows? But there are software developers and server admins and cloud engineers and all kinds of stuff. So let's talk about how we can help this audience. So you have a lot of experience in business development and in media, and you're doing some very interesting things with the technology for your podcast. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So before that, I would just like to make a comment, Chad, that, you mentioned about the profile of your audience. That's exactly the profile of a lot of my neighbors here in Bangalore and a lot of my friends. So Perfect. In a way, I'm already in company of friends.
Awesome. Well, have them tune into this episode and future episodes. I would love to meet them and talk to them and share my other guests with them and get their take on it.
Absolutely. Would love to do that.
Perfect.
So now coming to your question, first of all, could you repeat that question?
Yeah. So let's just tell us a little bit about the technology in your business and why technology is so important and how you're using both technology and the process of building a podcast a little bit differently from what I'm doing, the process that I'm using, but also a little bit different than what other people are doing, other podcasters are doing, and why that's so important to you.
Sure. And thank you for repeating the question. And there was a reason why I requested you to repeat that question. And the reason is that, first of all, I'm an engineer, but I worked in construction most of my life. So I'm not like a technology person. Okay. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was literally, it was like a blank slate that I had to start with. And what I realized was that, three things were extremely important for our business to work in India, to succeed in India. Number one, the cost of production had to be as low as possible. And I'm not talking cheap. I'm really talking like smartest possible way of doing it. Second point was that, how much can we automate? Because we knew going in that we want to work with a very lean team. And, for me, the role model of an office is what the guys at Automatic, the guys behind WordPress are doing, 400 odd employees, 0 offices, and a $2 billion odd company, I think. If they can do it, as an entrepreneur, what prevents me from setting up my processes today in such a way so that 3 or 4 years down the line, we can replicate that model, to the scale we are at. And third and most important thing was that we wanted to create processes that could be replicated across multiple languages, right? So India has about 7 or 8 languages which are spoken by more than 50 million people. So the point is that, our conversation, for example, can we have a similar conversation in 7 or 8 different languages and broadcast it at the same time?
Wow.
Right. And that's what Hollywood does in India, by the way. When they release some of their blockbusters, Star Wars, for example, now, what they do is that those movies are released in at least 4 languages, English, Hindi, Telugu, and Tamil. The reason is that, there is an audience there who's hungry for that content. So, why don't we serve that need? So the point is that, obviously, some of the smartest people in the media business have put a lot of thought and effort in building this Hollywood kind of a model. What prevents us from podcasters to replicate that model? So these were the kind of, 3 or 4 principles on which we started out the business. Now, speaking of technology, it's again, very few iOS or iTunes users in India, and WhatsApp is one of the largest. I think it's the number 1 most installed app in India. So we thought, hey, why don't we use WhatsApp for distributing the content, right? Mm-hmm. We use WhatsApp broadcast lists obviously then other recipients would not know, who else is receiving the story. So we have a show for children's story called Bal Gatha, which literally means kid stories. So we distribute Bal Gatha through WhatsApp. right? So our WhatsApp list is literally like the equivalent of a mailing list. People in India may not open their emails, but they will certainly check their WhatsApp messages.
Wow.
So that was one on the distribution side that we came up with, one idea. Now we're thinking a little ahead, toying with the idea of, hey, can we use bots to do that, right? My dream is that, a kid should actually tell that, hey, Alexa, tell me a bedtime story. And, lo and behold, Balgata story starts playing, and in a language of their choice. So that's where the technology would play a significant role in the content distribution side. Now let's talk about content production side. Chad, I have a 10,000 rupees, so that's like $150 investment in my recording studio. And how is the audio quality on your side?
It sounds wonderful. Sounds great.
Okay, thank you. What if I tell you that I use a 10-year-old Dell laptop running on Linux for the first 7 months of our business? It's only around July or August that I got a MacBook Pro. And for 2 months, I was running my entire recording studio on a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, well, I can actually believe that because one of the reasons, there's a couple of reasons why I didn't go to video podcast. One is I've got the face for radio. Thank you very much. And second is the production requirements for video is so much greater, so much more technology and more lighting and more, everything that you have to have in place, more bandwidth that you have to have in place for video. But audio production is actually one of the simplest things you can ever do. All you need is a halfway decent mic, a very cheap mic in any computer from the last century, and plug it in and you can get going. So good for you, man. Keeping it lean, keeping your business lean while you're creating your podcast.
Yeah, thank you. So now, coming again on the technology part, we are looking to crowdsource these stories, right? Not just in terms of the written content or, the images that go with it. But here's just a thought, okay? Again, for your listeners, a problem that I would like to pose. A traditional model of recording is that the narrator goes to the studio, right? Unless they have a home studio, which I think you and I certainly have it. But what if you're a narrator and you don't have, your situation does not permit you to have that recording studio at your place? What do? You either rent a studio, you have to travel all the way over there. So maybe for an hour of content, you have to spend something like 4 hours, right? Now, what if we reverse the model? What if the recording studio came to your home?
Wow,
right?
That'd be cool. So how do we do that?
So India and of course, UK used to have these phone booths, the Tardis box of Doctor Who. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll take you all the way through space and time, but now they're going to let me record my podcast episodes.
Now they will let you record your podcast episodes.
It's amazing. It's magic.
It is magic, exactly. You rent it by the hour. It gets delivered. The recording booth gets delivered to your home. And we are actually filed a patent for it here in India. The idea is that now I can, go ahead and either on a back of a semi-trailer, I can have 7 or 8 such recording booths. People just walk in, record their content, walk out, right? It could actually over the cloud go to some centralized recording studio where the finished MP3 or a WAV file, whatever you want, is delivered to your phone or whatever by the time you reach home, right? Cool. Can that technology also help in recording content in 15 different languages? Answer is yes, as long as I have the good quality editors who can actually filter out the riffraff from that. So that's where we are looking at right now. So hopefully a year from now, some of the things that I'm talking about right now, and it may seem crazy at this point in time, and I hope they are crazy enough that I'm actually able to do it. Some of these things should actually start taking place.
Dude, that's an amazing vision. So let me step through some of the things you talked about, because we covered a lot of information in a short period of time. And first of all, I want to make sure that I got clear on them. And second of all, to reiterate to the audience what your vision is and what you're trying to do here. First of all, in India, as you said, iTunes is not a big deal, but WhatsApp is huge. And I know a lot of software developers that I've talked to who live and work in India or from India, and they say the same thing to me over the years. Chad, what's up? WhatsApp? Do you use WhatsApp? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I've literally never installed it. I've never looked at it. And they use it all the time for communicating with folks back home, keeping up with the news, and all kinds of uses. So WhatsApp is where your audience is, and so you're using that app as the platform to broadcast your messages. So you're actually synchronizing your podcast as a WhatsApp list and broadcasting through WhatsApp. And now the vision is, how can we automate everything? We're going to build some production booths, some audio production recording booths that are like the Tardis, that are like the old school English phone booths, right? That are available, where people could walk in, close the door, pick up a receiver, pick up a microphone, hit record, and start broadcasting live or on demand. The episodes are recorded, and then behind the scenes you'll have both technology and human technology, meaning human people actually there doing the editing and maybe the transcription or the re-recording or the moving it into a different language. And so you want to be able to crowdsource a lot more audio content in India through these mechanisms where you have just people off the street come in, do the recordings, but then it's broadcast over the technologies that people are actually going to tune in and listen to it, but then you're re-recording it or transcribing it into multiple languages. Did I get that right?
That's exactly right. And
Sweet.
the big vision is that tomorrow. So we are building a platform called Gatha. Gatha means a story, right? So all our shows will have the tagline Gatha to it. So Bal Gatha is kids stories. On Valentine's Day, we are launching a show called Prem Gatha, which is romance stories in 4 languages. So eventually, our vision is that Gatha should become like the YouTube equivalent of audio, right? It's all crowdsourced content, but there is at least a minimum level of quality which is maintained. And that's the reason why we are actually thinking of setting up these, Tardises. Tardai? What's the right term there?
I don't know. I've never looked at the plural form of a TARDIS. That's right. Interesting. My niece is a huge Doctor Who fan, so I'm going to have to call her up after this episode and ask her, what's the plural form of TARDIS?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that's the idea. And I'll tell you what, again, one of the reasons why actually tinkering around with Raspberry Pi, and again, a big thanks to my wife for putting up with all the crazy hours that I spent trying to first of all understand and then try to set it up. The whole idea was that I'm at 10,000 rupees now, which is like $150. Can I bring it down to maybe $100? And that really changes the economies of scale, literally, right?
Mm-hmm. That's your budget for the whole box, for the whole TARDIS going forward, or just for the audio components, meaning like the microphone and the Raspberry Pi and the internet connectivity?
No, the whole unit.
Okay.
So, the soundproofing, the basic box itself, we also need to take care of ventilation and making sure that the temperature is right without really having the sound of air flowing through the vents coming in, right? Particularly in India, where the temperature goes to 100 degrees Fahrenheit for majority of the year, for majority of the country, that's going to be a big thing. So we are working on that, and if the unit cost comes around $100, I think that's the spot. I mean, that's the price range we want to get into. That's where we see that then you can license these things also, right, to other people.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So what's your goal? Is it to have kind of one of these boxes on every corner and to have just the general public going in and recording their own episodes? Or are you looking to have kind of premiere boxes in premiere locations and recruit, good talent to record it? Like, what's your goal to put this out there once you get it out there?
Mm-hmm. I think the first step would be to have really great narrators and great talent to actually try this out. And in that way, I want to try the top-down approach, right? If you get really good, sound output as well as narration out of these devices, that's when you can actually go ahead and market it to other people that you also can sound like a Bollywood star X, or you also can sound like a singer Y. Something like that. And, I think that approach would work. Again, these are some of the details that I've not really worked on, because right now, for the next 2 odd months, we are in the process of raising our first round of funding and, everything else that comes with it. But the plan is that certainly by around this time next year, at least the first 2 prototypes should be ready. And I really want to try this out.
That's awesome. So what do you need from Tech Pros, right? So we have a whole audience of people out there who can maybe help you make this thing a reality, make this thing happen. So what are the big struggles that you're dealing with right now?
I think the biggest struggle right now is distribution. And before we went live, I was talking to you about the television broadcast model versus the funnel model, right, Chad? So I would like to repeat that, right? The typical old school TV broadcast model was that you had a big antenna which used to broadcast the signals, and then if your TV or a smaller antenna can pick that signal up, you can actually go ahead and watch the TV, right? In terms of evolution of the broadcast the podcasting market in India particularly, we are at that stage right now. So instead of zeroing down on, let's say that it's going to be Spotify, it's going to be Stitcher, and it's going to be iTunes. Right now we probably have 11 or 12 different channels where through which we are distributing the content, and our bet is that once the audience discovers the content, it might be easier to start shepherding them slowly to the one or two or the three the channels that you want to deliver the content through. And one mode of the channel that I'm really, very excited about, and again, I don't understand the technology, and that's where probably I would need the help. How we can use bots to distribute podcasts, right? Skype, Facebook Messenger, maybe even WhatsApp. Once they start allowing bots, right? These 3 or 4 or 5 large platforms with a large install base, they are already there on one device or the other for every listener. Right? So my job as a content provider would become significantly easier if this content is delivered to them through bots.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because, I've recorded, let's see, this is episode 261 that we are recording today. So I've got a lot of back issues of this content. And when I think about when I publish it, right, I have subscribers who are listening to the next episode, like as this episode goes live in the first part of 2017, in January 2017, there's, going to be 500 or 1,000 listeners that just get it the first week that it's published. But there's going to be, the content's going to be evergreen. So this episode's going to be live on the internet somewhere and people can search for it and find it. So what if there was a bot where you were really looking for, I need to know about how to start my own podcast, right? So now they can use Google, they can go to Hello Tech Pros and do a search there, but why not have like a Chad bot that you can interact with, right? Or an Amar bot that you can interact with and say, I'm looking for content on XYZ, and that bot interacts with you and says, okay, this is what I found. Do you want to play this episode? I've created you a personal list of 5 episodes. Would you like to play them back to back? And you say, yeah, sure, sounds great. Hit it. And then, you listen to a little bit of it. You can keep listening, or you can say, hey, play, hey, Alexa, or hey, Google, or hey, whatever, Siri, play the next episode and skip on ahead. So I think that vision is right around the corner. And I would be very surprised if people weren't already working on some of that bot technology. And so I think that can be a very near-term reality to make that possible.
Absolutely. And the other part was analytics again, right? From the 10 or 11 or 12 different channels where your audience is, right? What could actually give me enough intelligence on, almost real-time basis, saying that at 7 p.m. on US East Coast, majority of your listeners are listening through Stitcher. So all the advertisement, the social media marketing that happens, that is automatically channeled to make sure that the audience on US East Coast is getting that message, and they're being driven or encouraged to click on the link so that they can listen to the podcast, right? So that's the other part. And then of course how we start dropping from these 10 or 11 different channels, we eventually funnel it down to 2 or 3, because funneling, that funnel has to be there from a marketing point of view, from eventually the revenue point of view, that that's where advertisers would also see value, right? Instead of us being everywhere, we are at 2 or 3 places, but we are really doing it right at those 2 or 3 places.
Awesome, I got you. So, right now, the podcast scene is, as you said, you're basically creating an MP3 file, MP4 file, whatever the format of the file is, and then you're publishing out there. And it's just an RSS feed, and people can subscribe to that RSS feed in whatever manner they want, right? And some podcasters specifically, they only send their RSS feed to syndicate on iTunes, or only send it out to Stitcher. And others are like trying to get on as many as possible. I, for one, try to get on as many as possible in the early days, but then I got other just listeners saying, Chad, I'm trying to get access to your podcast, but I hate Apple. So I'm trying to reverse engineer to get to where your RSS feed is from Apple. Can you just send me the link, dude? Because I don't want to use it. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so then I started here's my RSS feed. And I published that out on my site now. You go to hellotechpros.com. There's a link like everywhere. On every page you go to, there's a link to get access to the raw RSS feed where you can listen to the content anywhere that makes sense for you. But what you're talking about, Amar, is all those listeners out there in all the different locations. Can we funnel them down into the one or two that really make the most sense? Instead of trying to support all the different podcast apps out there, can we funnel our audience down into the apps or into the distribution channels that really make sense for the type of audience that you're trying to target? So like in this case, can you potentially do a deal with WhatsApp and have, a dedicated audio experience on WhatsApp specifically to the audience that you're broadcasting to?
No, absolutely. And thank you for mentioning WhatsApp again, because that was going to be my other request, that if anybody among your audience is with either Facebook or WhatsApp, what we are really looking for is this, okay? And this is just, again, a way of distributing content, Chad. And if it works, I'll really be very happy if other broadcasters or, podcasters also start doing it. Here's the idea, right? WhatsApp has a broadcast list, which has about 250 or 256 members per list. Tomorrow, as the audience grows, can we set up US East Coast list 1, New Delhi list 2, Shanghai list 3, for example, and then the content is delivered to you at 7 p.m. your time. So our show for kids, bedtime stories. So if bedtime in Shanghai is 7 p.m., the content, the WhatsApp message goes to you at 7 p.m. your time, which, I'm sure and your audience knows as well that once the file is MP3 file is uploaded at Libsyn or Blubbery or we use Audioboom, it's one time zone, and whatever is the corresponding time zone across the world, it doesn't come to you at your time, right? It comes to you at the broadcaster's time.
Yep.
So that was the other idea, that again, thinking ahead. Now, if I know that there are 5,000 people on US East Coast listening to my content, on a Tuesday at 7 p.m., I can actually then try to look for advertisers in that, who are interested in reaching that message to those guys, right? Now, even my advertising, my messaging becomes tailored to the geography of the listener.
Yeah, that's absolutely critical, because when you're not tracking those analytics, when you're not tracking those metrics, when you have no idea where your audience is coming from, then when you're trying to sell sponsorships, it's like, look, I know I have 10,000 downloads. Okay, well, where are those 10,000? Like, where literally in the world are they? Who are the listeners? What is the demographics of your listeners? Are they technical professionals? Are they single moms? Are they, what are they and who are they? And how can we serve them the right content, not just for the content of the show, but the content of the advertisement as well, right? So is that how the model, like the revenue model for this application is going to work, is you're looking really for advertisers and sponsors?
Yes. So again, the Indian market is such that affiliate does not work much. Again, it's a function of numbers, right? As the listeners grow, probably it will become a revenue stream. Subscription may not work, right? That leaves us with, a model for broadcast media here, television or films or general entertainment. They call it advertiser-funded programming, right? AFP, wherein you have like one or two anchor sponsors for every show, and that's where majority of revenue comes. And then you fill in your mid-roll probably, or your end roll or something like that with smaller advertisers, so to speak. So we've seen some success in that. So we had, I cannot name them, but one of the top 5 publishers have approached us, and we, these are paid assignments wherein I interview their authors for my show and books. We are talking to kids product companies, for our show on for kids, bedtime stories, wherein they are interested in doing this. And it's not a lot of revenue right now, but the good part is that there is a revenue. So we do see AFP growing. And if we can, just like you said, right, if we can tell them who your listener is, what are their demographics, what are their probably, preferences, lifestyle or things like that. If you really know your customer, and then you can go back and sell that customer, your listener to the advertiser, I think that's going to be a great win. And on that point, I'm just going to take probably another minute, Chad, and I'll just tell you a very interesting example. The show on books that I have, My Kitab, till end of June, 30% of the listeners were from North America, 60% were from India. Okay. I changed the format of the show. So from 30 minutes, I moved on closer to the hour, about 55 minutes, because I know that people in North America like to listen to shows that are longer in duration. And I changed all my social media messaging to 7 p.m. India time to 7 a.m. India time, which is daytime in the US. By end of August, in 2 months, not only the listenership grew, but 72% of my listeners came from North America and are only about 20% from India.
Wow,
That is the impact, right? Had I built further on that, it was just an experiment, and I think it was wildly successful. But had I built on that, and had I approached advertisers in the US saying that, hey, majority of my listeners are from North America, I think that would have been even financially successful.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Just changing a little bit of the format of the show and the timeline, the broadcast time of when you're putting it out there can absolutely change the demographics of who's going to be listening. And if you're trying to approach certain sponsors who are going to buy advertisements for your show, then you really want to get the match the right audience to the right advertiser to make sure that everyone's in alignment. It sounds like some amazing stuff that you've got working on here, Amar. I really wish you all the best of luck in what you're working on, and I'd like to find out more and keep in contact with you so that we can watch these Tardises as kind of like if you know Redbox, right? So the Redbox DVD distribution and like video game distributions. I'm assuming they're all over the world. I don't know where they are, but they're certainly in my neighborhoods wherever I've lived. These things just popped up out of nowhere. Now there's a bazillion of them, 3 or 4 on every corner. And if you're looking for video game content or movie content, you just walk up to one of these kiosks. You slide your credit card and you have that transaction. You can get that movie. Amar, you're doing the same thing, right? Having the red box of podcasting, where a person could just walk up, swipe their credit card, or enter their ID, and go in there and create, instead of consuming content, create content that other people can access. Very, very interesting idea that you've got going on, and I wish you all the best. Before you leave, can you share any parting words of wisdom for our audience, the best way that we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for this opportunity once again. I think I just had one advice, keep experimenting, right? Fully knowing that 9 times out of 10 you're going to fail, but that one success is going to be so exciting that, you're really going to be satisfied at the end of the day and, have a smile on your face. So that would be my advice. In terms of knowing more about me, on Twitter, I'm at me Amar Vyas. That's AMEAMARVYAS. My author website is amarvyas.in, and our business is Kamakshi Media, and that's kamakshi-media.in. And I will spare your listeners to have me spell it out for them. So Chad, I would appreciate if you could actually include those links in the show notes.
Absolutely. You can get access to the show notes at hellotechpros.com/261. Amar, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. I think this is both a demographic that we don't talk a lot about on the show, the Indian market, which is huge and growing like exponentially all the time. There's so many great people. A lot of my really close friends are either living in India or originally from India. And it's wonderful people, wonderful culture, and the entrepreneurship in India is just as good as anywhere else in the world. There's so much new technology, new processes, new innovation that's happening in India, and you're right there on the edge of it, brother. Sounds like very interesting times ahead for you, and if you can hit below that $100 per Tardis box, then I think you got something there that's going to explode. So wish you all the best of luck. Tech Pros, if you are in the business, right, in the business of building something like this, please visit the show notes page, episode 261, hellotechpros.com/261, and click on the links here to contact Amar and let him know what your ideas are to help him out, like how you can, I don't know, if you're an HVAC engineer and you can really help the air quality, in the box so that people don't sweat to death while they're trying to record their podcast episode. Just whatever you got for them, help them out. That would be awesome. You've been listening to Amar Vyas, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/261. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If this episode helped you out in any way, please leave a review on iTunes and let me know what you thought. iTunes reviews helps our rankings, which helps us grow the Hello Tech Pros podcast to a broader audience, which helps more technical professionals and techpreneurs build their career, build their products, and build their businesses. If you are a subscriber and get repeat value out of the show, consider becoming a sponsor on Patreon. The information on this podcast is free to everyone, but I'm giving you the opportunity to pay for the value you get out of it, starting as little as $1 a month. Pledge your support today at patreon.com/hellotechpros or visit hellotechpros.com/sponsor.